Thanks. All right, so as I talked about, there's this, every company has what I call two factories. There's the factory that makes stuff. So if you're in IT, you're making information systems or you're running information systems, and keeping operations up and all these other kinds of things that are necessary. But you also have a fix-it factory. And the fix-it factory is where you correct any kind of mistakes or errors or defects or whatever. And as we all know, software doesn't release, it escapes. And sometimes it has bugs in it. And so what we have to do is go and figure out what's going wrong and how can we fix that so that we can, again, smooth out that whole process so it works perfectly. That fix-it factory also impacts your customers, right? So the other day I bought like a faucet because I had to replace the faucet, but the little Allen screws that tighten up the handles on the faucet were missing. Well, suddenly I became part of the fix-it factory, so I had to go back and get the right stuff to make that all work. So this is something to think about because a lot of money is wasted in the fix-it factory. Now, if you look at it, and this is kind of optimistic, all right? Up to a third of your total expenses are spent on rework and waste. That's fixing stuff that shouldn't be broken or trashing stuff that you can't fix. And so this is a huge opportunity. Now, a lot of people spend a lot of money on big data. And if you've read anything about it, a lot of the big data efforts, 70-some% of them don't actually have any return on investment. And so that's not good. But with a little bit of data, you can actually take some information and go figure out exactly why are we fixing stuff that shouldn't need fixing, and why are we trashing stuff that can't be fixed? Well, I can tell you, with a little bit of data, it's pretty easy to figure out what that is. So I know you're all familiar with the 80-20 rule of Pareto, right? 20% of what you do produces 80% of the benefit, but it also produces 80% of the mistakes, errors, waste, rework, and lost profit. And so this is where we want to focus. But many years ago, I found that there's actually an extension to that, and I call it the 450 rule. And again, because Pareto's rule is a power law, it actually is one of those things where it applies within the 20%. So as little as 4% of what you do is producing over half the mistakes, errors, waste, rework, lost profit. And, so this is the kind of thing where if you just focus a little bit, you can make massive improvements very quickly. That I always say that this isn't like, problems aren't like butter on bread. It's more like some sort of little growth somewhere inside of a loaf of bread. It's one of those kind of mold things, right? So what we have to do is go use some data to pinpoint that, and we can fix that. Now, the other thing that's important about the 450 rule is this also applies to knowledge. So you don't have to know everything to do anything. I spent many years in Lean and Six Sigma, and we spent a lot of time teaching people the stuff that they didn't need to know to solve problems they didn't have, to impress people they didn't like. And so I kind of got annoyed and said, well, no, we can make that a lot easier, a lot faster if we choose to. So you don't have to know everything to do anything, right? And these Pareto patterns exist in even small samples of data. It doesn't take a gajillion records, right? I've done things with as few as 30, 40, 50 records of data and as much as 50,000 records, but I don't need 10 million records because the pattern exists inside of the data already. And so you don't need the whole thing. You can just use a little sample. So the 450 rule says that one step out of every 25 that you do creates 50% of the waste, rework, and lost profit. And so what we want to do is take some data to pinpoint that, to narrow that down, right? So we're going to focus, then we're going to improve, and then we're going to sustain that improvement. And that is the secret sauce of going out and saving millions and millions of dollars. So, as I mentioned, 4% of the methods and tools will solve over 50% of the problems. So we don't need to know everything. We just need to know the key tools to make this happen. and that's what I want to share with you. So I call it finding the invisible low-hanging fruit. You know, most consultants will talk to you about low-hanging fruit, how there's all this low-hanging fruit. That's nonsense, okay? All the low-hanging fruit has been picked, right? So what we have to do is find the invisible low-hanging fruit, the stuff that's hard to see, right? The stuff that can't be done without a little data analysis. And so to do that, we're going to use pivot tables, control charts, Pareto charts, fishbone diagrams for root cause analysis, although they're not very complex if you do it right. A little countermeasures, and then contrast and make sure that we actually made the improvement we're trying to make. And those are very easy to do. So those 7 tools will solve most of your problems that exist in a typical business. Now, it doesn't matter, you know, if you manufacture something, you write software. You know, all those years that I was in software, you know, it turned out that maybe 3 or 4 modules out of hundreds would produce 90% of the errors. So what do? Well, you go out back in and you rewrite or you restructure those modules so that they're not error prone, right? Or a handful of modules will be more enhancement prone. And so what do? Well, instead of hard coding stuff, you figure out how to pull stuff out into tables so that you get that so that all of that stuff can be updated in a table and your software doesn't change. Because hard coding is always hard, right? So these are the kinds of things that we want to focus on. It's not everything that's broken. And back when I worked in the phone company, we had all these adventures where we were trying to, you know, rewrite entire systems. Well, no, I don't think that was right? We wasted a lot of money and we're not successful because most of those systems have been around long enough that they knew more about how the business ran than any one single person or any design group or any requirements group could possibly imagine. And so trying to rewrite it was always complex. But if we started working on pieces that were troublesome and problematic and started doing the things to make them more maintainable, number one, more enhanceable, number two, then what happened was those systems could quickly become stable and manageable and without having to rewrite the whole thing. So think about that a little bit. Again, the 450 rule is going to apply to your software systems as well. So when it comes to most data that I see is overcooked. And what do I mean by that? It's been summarized too much. So here's summaries, right? Deaths by type of surgeries in different hospitals, but it's by quarter. And that makes it impossible to analyze. You know, I look at a lot of the COVID data, and all the COVID data has been uber summarized into total cases by day, you know, and so it does give you a kind of a bell-shaped curve, but it doesn't tell me anything that I can make sense of. But when you start to look at it, you can narrow it down and you start to discover that most of the deaths are people over 55, which includes me.
Hi there, I hope you enjoyed that last clip. My name is Michael Maludis, and if you'd like to watch the full 60 minutes of that last webcast, while also gaining complete unlimited access to our entire library of IT learning, simply visit our subscribe page at greatpro.org/subscribe. Unlimited annual access is $199 per year, but if you use the coupon code LEARN2EARN, you can drop that membership fee to just $149. That's less than $13 per month for unlimited access to over 1,000 hours of on-demand career development, covering the entire spectrum of IT management best practices, including business analysis and requirements, software development, quality and testing, risk management, process improvement, project management, and even digital transformation. But your membership doesn't just give you unlimited access to our vast learning library. You also get free access to our mobile app, as well as direct access to our network of over 300 of the world's leading IT consultants, all of whom are dedicated to putting practical knowledge at your fingertips so that you can learn more and earn more. I hope you will join me in becoming a member of the Great IT Professional and advancing your career with us. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit that subscribe button above so that you get notified whenever we publish new free webcasts each week of the year. Thank you for your time and best wishes for your continued success.